in each step. Also, when there are scenarios that are not fully covered in the rubric, communicate with the instructor and the team of TAs or IAs. For example, what are some common mistakes that the students make? In these cases, are there specific nudge phrases that we can use for specific questions? What should we do when they ask for a validation such as, "Did I get that right?" Having these conversations before the exam would make everyone in the instructional team more ready to administer oral exams, feel prepared, and also better achieve academic integrity, as long as it's reflected in the grading rubric. Now, let's talk about what to keep in mind when we are actually administering oral exams and what to do within each question. First, it is important to ask questions that are clear. In written or oral exams, often students get lost in the question itself even before they arrive at the core concept in the question. Also, sometimes the question has too many parts in it, letting the student astray instead of focusing on what the key point of the question is. Therefore, ask short and clear questions. Think about the power words that require the action of the student, such as distinguish, explain, compare, or define. These short questions with power words will actually help the student better recognize the goal of the question. Also, if the question prompt is long on its own, make sure to take pauses so that the student can process the pieces one at a time. Second, make sure to check in with the student if they have understood the exam question. Often students might be a bit nervous or they might be a bit distracted in looking at the visuals while listening to your speech. In that case, we can always repeat the question for them. Third, once the student starts answering the question, practice attentive listening. Unless the student is going over the time limit for that question, remember to wait for enough time, around 8 seconds, to give them some space. When they start answering the question, make conscious effort to understand the student's flow of thought. Looking at the full picture will give you a better understanding of whether to engage in additional steps. Now, let's take a moment to fill out our second activity. We have 2 questions. The first question shows an example of a long-winded question. What are some ways that we can rephrase it to be clear and concise? Our second question is actually an action activity. So let's try pausing for 8 seconds to feel how long it is, because that's the pause that we will provide our students with. Try timing yourself with a cell phone or count it in your head. How did it feel? Please write it down in the Google form. Okay, now let's think about step 3, maintaining the flow before transitions. In this step, we want you to think about how long we should wait for the student before transitioning to the next question, how we can check in with the student, and using key transitional phrases before moving on to the next step. To successfully transition from one question to another, let's keep 3 things in mind. First, remember the wait time, around 8 seconds. Enough wait time will provide the student with some space to make sure that they can calmly think about the questions again. This may also differ by the exam structure in that class. In some classes, students might be presented with a question that they have already seen before. In other classes, students may be presented with a new question for the first time. Still, what's important here is providing enough room for the student to process how they wanted to answer the question. So please double check it with your instructor for the exam structure and how much context the student has about the exam content. Second, check in with the student if they're ready to proceed. For example, if the student responded to some part of the question being asked, but not to the other part of the question, we can prompt the student in a non-intrusive manner, such as by asking, "Is there anything that you wanted to add before we move on?" This is also something that we would recommend checking in with the instructor of your course, since each course may have different guidelines on how much probing questions are allowed during the oral exams. Thirdly, when you're transitioning to the next question, use transitional phrases before moving on. For example, use power words such as now, this time, switching gears. These are the words that can capture the attention of the listener and have them ready in a mindset for new information. Students would benefit from these additional cues during a time-sensitive and unfamiliar oral exam context. Okay, now we're finally at the last activity for this video. And this time we will actually be using a specific scenario, so please try answering the question out loud as if you're talking to a student. And then record your responses on our Google form. We'll be using this set of questions. So there are two questions, and the first question asks about a scenario on Earth. So Kelsey brought a piece of feather and a bowling ball to the top of the Tower of Pisa. She dropped them to the ground by releasing them at the same time. Which one will fall down to the ground first and why? You see that there's two parts in this question, right? Which one will fall down to the ground first? And the other part of the question is asking why. Then when students are ready, they'll be proceeding to question 2, which is on a different context, that is in a vacuum room. So now Kelsey visits the lab with a room that can simulate a vacuum. She puts the feather and the ball on robot arms in the vacuum room. Then she goes to the control room and releases both robot arms at the same time. Now, what will happen this time and why? So, here are two questions for you. First, let's imagine that the student answers question 1 by saying, the ball falls down to the ground because, and then stay silent. How much wait time would you use? Then, after the wait time, what is a phrase you could use to check in with the student? After that, let's imagine transitioning from question 1 to question 2. What is a phrase you could use to make sure that they know that we're moving to a different question? Remember, question 1 and question 2 has different contexts, and we really want the student to really pay attention to the second question and knowing or expecting that there will be new information. Okay? Finally, let's review the take-home points from this video. So far, we looked at 3 steps. In step 1, we talked about using visuals to support full access to the exam material for the students. We emphasized creating an easy and inviting exam context for the students. In step 2, we learned about asking clear and short questions and emphasized the importance of attentive listening. In step 3, we talked about providing enough waiting time, checking in with the student, and using power words for transitions. For all steps, we also emphasize communicating with the instructor and other assistants to stay on the same page and using the grading rubric. Remember, the goal of the oral exam is to provide students with a deeper learning experience, and the TAs, IAs, us, we are a part of the instructional team that shapes this experience together. For a lot of us, this class may be the very first class to administer oral exams, and that is totally okay. We're all in this together, and we can always gain more confidence from practice. And related to that, I will be holding office hours throughout fall quarter, so we will keep you updated on that. So we will have some chances to practice mock exams. Okay, so that was the end of the video. So you're all done, yay! Thanks for watching, and please remember to submit your reflection responses. Good luck with everything, good luck with the quarter, and have fun with oral exams. See you soon.